Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in August 2025. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. First things first, I'm going to share some tips with you with regards to Preseen application because you need to understand how to bring in Preseen info when developing answers. So I will be sharing these tips with you in the first part of today's session, and then this will be followed by an industry analysis and a pre-scene analysis in which I'm going to take you through the internal dynamics of your chosen company, Leothayre, partially. And let me quickly remind you of the webinars and workshops we have scheduled for you. The most important webinar out of the webinar series, which is the third one, Answering Technique, is happening next Saturday, 12th of July at 9 GMT or 10 AM UK. In this most important webinar, I will be teaching you crucial answering and time management techniques. And also at the same webinar, I will take you through a mock exam, thereby highlighting how to implement these answering and time management techniques when you are developing your answers. So I hope you'd attend it without fail to gain an in-depth understanding of how you should structure your answers, how you should plan out your answers, and when attempting each of your mock exams, I expect you to keep practicing the answering and time management techniques which you are going to learn at next Saturday's webinar. And in the fourth webinar exam prep, I'm going to take you through examiner's comments because it's essential that you understand what the examiner expects from you. And at the same time, I will share some tips to make sure that you build your confidence in the upcoming weeks. And also, I will share crucial stress management techniques with you at the fourth webinar. And then we are kickstarting our workshop series, which starts with the F3 workshop, in which I'm going to take you through your F3 syllabus in its entirety. And at the same time, I'm going to take you through one of the mock exams, which is focused on your F3 syllabus. And similarly, in the upcoming workshops, which are focused on P3 and E3 syllabi, I will be, taking you through each syllabus area and discussing a mock exam concerning each pillar. And in the final workshop, which happens 2 or 3 days before your examination, I will be sharing last-minute tips with you to make sure that you walk into the exam with a high level of positivity, believing in your skill set, because as per the CIMA exam, if you believe in yourself, if you are positive, then chances of you passing increases significantly. So I hope you'd attend these weekly webinars without fail, which is the best way to get all your questions answered. And at the same time, this is the best way to keep tabs about your performance on a weekly basis. So then, having said that, let's look at pre-scene application. What is the right approach? First things first, before you think about including pre-scene info when developing your answers, you need to know your key information. So it's essential that you gain an in-depth understanding of what appears within your pre-scene document. So with this in mind, with the intention of teaching you the key information, which the and making sure that you can easily understand the key info which appears within your pre-scene, we have developed two different resources. The first resource is the annotated pre-scene, and based on this annotated pre-scene, I'm going to conduct our pre-scene analysis in a little while. Then you will understand how beneficial this annotated pre-scene is, because as part of these annotations, we have summarized the entire pre-scene. Also, we have explained possible exam scenarios which can be tested, considering the hints which the examiner has hidden within your pre-scene document. And also, we have highlighted possible syllabus areas which can be tested tied to pre-scene info. So it's essential to gain access to this annotated pre-scene if you want to gain an in-depth understanding of the most important points which are highlighted within your pre-scene. Similarly, we have developed a pre-scene mind map, and after today's session, I'm going to share this pre-scene mind map with you via the WhatsApp group. And once you have access to this pre-scene mind map, your life becomes easy when it comes to remembering the most important points which are highlighted within the pre-scene. You need not develop your own mind maps or study notes based on your pre-scene. We have already done it for you. So as you can see, we have covered all elements as per thereby considering the information presented in the pre-scene document. So after I share this document with you, I expect you guys to keep going through this document on a daily basis until your examination, so that you are constantly keeping yourself reminded of the most important points highlighted within the Preseen document. So via these two documents or study resources, we have covered the first element. So before you think about developing answers which are totally aligned with the Preseen document, you need to know your key information, and the best way to do so is to refer to our annotated Preseen and go through the Preseen mind map on a daily basis. And also, you need to know your numbers, because as you know, you are playing the role of a senior finance manager. So you have to have an understanding of how your decisions will impact the financial situation of your chosen company. So that's why you need to have a good understanding about the key ratios. So in order to make your life easy, again, we have developed a separate financial analysis, a separate set of slides, thereby conducting a financial analysis. So once you have gone through this document in a jiffy, you are in a position to understand the financial situation of your chosen company, because we have evaluated each financial statement in depth, yet making sure to keep things simple so that you can easily understand what appears within your chosen company's financial statements. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, the statement of changes in equity, and at the very end, we have conducted a ratio analysis concerning each and every ratio, which you have to be conversant about as the senior finance manager of your chosen company. And when conducting this ratio analysis, we have not just considered the information which appears within Leothayre's financial statements. We have considered the information which is shared with you concerning Leothayre's closest competitors' financial statements as well. All right, so we have covered the second element as well. Simply refer to the financial analysis slides, then you'd understand about the numbers. And when conducting your preparations, you have to prepare for possible scenarios, yet be open-minded. So if you look at the Preseen document, the examiner is actually sharing some hints about what can be tested at your exam. If you look at the news articles which appear within your Preseen, these news articles give us an indication of the type of scenarios which can be tested at your examination. You will understand how to decrypt these newspaper articles once I'm done with the Preseen analysis, because as part of the Preseen analysis, I'm going to take you through one of the news articles and explain to you how these newspaper articles or how the information which is contained within these newspaper articles can be utilized when developing scenarios. So when developing our 6 mock exams, we have made sure to cover all these scenarios, thereby developing Preseen specific mock exams. However, although you are getting yourself conversant about the type of scenarios which can be tested at the exam, your objective when attempting each of these mock exams is to improve your skill set, gain a better understanding of how your knowledge can be tested, gain a better understanding of Leothayre and its internal and external dynamics. However, you should not try to memorize these scenarios, memorize the type of questions which appear within our mock exams, because as a senior finance manager, just think, if you're really operating as a senior finance manager, can you memorize anything and do your job successfully? Or instead, are you supposed to consider what happens at present and thereby come up with evaluations or recommendations which are aligned with what the company is facing at the moment? You are expected to be practical at all times as a senior finance manager when providing solutions, when conducting evaluations, when providing recommendations. You are expected to consider the information which is shared with you during the exam. So don't try to memorize anything. The mocks are intended to give you a clue of how each syllabus area can be tested and what type of scenarios can be thrown your way. However, your job is to improve your skill set and be open-minded, because during the exam, your responsibility is to consider the information which is shared with you and develop answers which are 100% aligned with each and every requirement, aligned with each and every scenario's information. You will gain a better understanding of how to do this in a successful manner when you attend next week's webinar, because in this webinar, I'm going to teach you answering and time management techniques. Then I will explain how you should develop answers which are totally aligned with each requirement and each scenario's information. And remember that the scenario presented in the exam carries the latest information. So what appears within your pre-scene gives you an indication of the past of your chosen organization, what has happened within the industry, what appears within your past financial statements. However, at the exam, you have to deal with fresh information concerning any type of opportunity the company is trying to exploit at present, or any type of threat the company is trying to avoid at present. So that's why you need to achieve a high level of open-mindedness when going through the mock exams. Your job is not to memorize the answers. Instead, understand the logic behind each answer, understand how each syllabus area can be tested. If you understand the logic behind each answer, then you will be extremely successful at your real examination. And when it comes to referring to pre-scene information in your answers, you are supposed to refer or cite pre-scene info in such a way that it adds value to your answer. So when going through answer scripts, what I've encountered is students have a tendency, especially those who are coming through exemption routes, have a tendency to include unnecessary information or generic information which is taken from the pre-scene. So in the first paragraph of each section, or each subtask rather, students will start their answer by saying Leothayre is operating within Dazzland, which is this type of a country, and the currency is this, and we are into manufacturing cube satellites or cube sets. So should you include such information, generic information, in your answer? Absolutely not, because you are reporting to the CFO or any other board member. So these board members are already aware of the fact that we are operating in Dazzland, which operates, and therefore we are utilizing the D dollar as our currency. And on top of that, the board members are aware of the type of products which we are selling at the moment, the type of services we are offering. So there's absolutely no point of reiterating pre-scene info, generic pre-scene info, with the intention of showing to the examiner that you have gone through the pre-scene, because if you try to do so, the examiner will actually end up deducting some marks because you have included irrelevant information. For instance, if the question is about stakeholder analysis, what is the point of you highlighting the fact that we are operating in Dazzland? If the question is about risk management, what is the point of you highlighting the fact that we are manufacturing cube satellites? So don't unnecessarily bring in information from the pre-scene. If you want to bring in info from the pre-scene, you have to do it with the prime objective of adding value to your answers, or with the intention of justifying your arguments. So there's a way in which you should tackle pre-scene info, or when it comes to applying pre-scene info when developing your answers. You will gain a better understanding of how to do these things in a practical sense in next week's webinar, because whilst teaching you answering technique, I will teach you application technique as well. And as part of this application skills, I will explain how to deal with pre-scene application and avoid overloading your responses with unnecessary details, as I mentioned earlier, just to demonstrate that you have studied the pre-scene. Always mentioning pre-scene info is not your job. Your job is the pre-scene is shared with you so that you gain an in-depth understanding of your external dynamics, your internal dynamics, and what appears within your financial statements. Other than that, when developing your answers, you have to be practical. You have to address the requirement at hand. You have to consider the information shared with you via each and every scenario, rather than mentioning unnecessary or generic pre-scene information. So attend the third webinar, which is happening next week, to learn these things. And if you refer to the suggested answers and answer plans of the 6 mock exams, then you will gain a better understanding of how to deal with pre-scene application. And when you watch the master classes, again, you will learn how to work on pre-scene application, because the objective of developing master classes is to take you through the logic behind logic of each answer, whilst doing so to teach you the relevant theoretical concept covered within each and every mock and to teach you application. So whilst teaching you application, we are teaching how to deal with pre-seen information or pre-seen application as well. Okay, so there's a way in which you should tackle this element. You will learn how to do it in next week's webinar and via the master classes, answer plans, and the suggested answers. All right, so then let's try to figure out how you should deal with your syllabus knowledge, E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So your syllabus is vast. So at this stage, you have to prepare for application of theories and concepts. So for instance, if there's a question about strategic options. So, let's assume we are trying to do something new. So we have a new strategic option at our disposal. So when pursuing this strategic option, you need to understand how you should conduct the evaluation. So you can look at the advantages and disadvantages of a certain strategic option which we are pursuing. But in order to come up with a holistic, foolproof answer, it's essential that you utilize something like the SAF framework, or in other terms, the suitability, acceptability, and the feasibility framework. So likewise, if there's a question about risk management or updating the risk register, there's a way in which you should manage your risks as well as update the risk register. So when it comes to managing risks, you are supposed to utilize something called the TARA framework or the TARA framework, because before we are supposed to manage our risks, we are supposed to categorize these risks into quadrants, which falls in line with what we have learned via your E3 syllabus under the TARA framework. And likewise, when it comes to updating the risk register, there's a way in which you are supposed to do it. There's a stepped approach which you need to adhere to when it comes to updating the risk register. So as and when necessary, you are supposed to utilize the conceptual knowledge which we have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. All right, so I can go on and on about how syllabus areas can be tested at the exam, and as and when you are supposed to utilize various different conceptual knowledge or theoretical elements. So if you have knowledge gaps, then you can't pass this examination, because if you had gone through the papers, the past exam variants and the suggested answers, you might have felt that, okay, these answers are highly practical. Yes, they are. But in order to come up with the most successful type of answers, the highest quality answers, as and when necessary, you are supposed to utilize the theoretical concepts or theoretical knowledge which you have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So there's a way in which you should tackle this. That's why we have developed the master classes with the prime intention of teaching you the theoretical concepts, and at the same time also explaining how to apply these theoretical concepts in a practical sense. So for instance, I was talking about the TARA framework, which is tied to risk categorization and therefore risk management. However, during your examination, you are not supposed to mention about these frameworks or explain these frameworks. You are not supposed to mention about what the TARA framework is, how it functions, or why we are supposed to use it and whatnot. Instead, you are simply supposed to directly apply the TARA framework when developing your answer. Similarly, let's assume there's a question which is tied to testing your knowledge pertinent to funding options. So when looking at funding options, there's a way in which you should approach such a question tied to debt and equity. So when doing so, you are supposed to look at the gearing ratio. There's absolutely no point of explaining the gearing ratio. I've seen students doing this. They try to, provide highly theoretical answers. There's no point of doing so, because your boss, your CFO, or some other director within your company is not interested to learn theoretical concepts. Instead, it is your job to utilize the conceptual knowledge which you have gained via your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi and apply this conceptual knowledge when developing your answers. And so that's about theories and concepts. So with regards to theories and concepts, we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas across the 6 mock exams which we have developed. So you have to be, when conducting your preparations, you have to be conversant with all these syllabus areas as per what's highlighted within the syllabus coverage document. So everything to do with strategy, evaluation, and formulation, you have to be conversant about all these different conceptual knowledge. then you have to be aware of board responsibilities, because you are playing the role of a senior finance manager within a quoted company. So you have to have a good understanding about board responsibilities, then how your company should be governed in the most effective manner. Therefore, you need to be conversant with corporate governance and ethics, how to run the company in an ethical manner, falling in line with the combined code of corporate governance, which is practiced in the UK. And you have to be conversant with finance strategy. Your decisions should make financial sense. So you have to be conversant with what's highlighted within your F3 syllabus concerning the finance strategy. And as a senior finance manager, you have to have the capability to identify risks and therefore come up with appropriate mitigatory action. If you had gone through the Preseen, you would have seen 6 different risks which are highlighted within your risk report. However, there are shortcomings. We have not identified certain risks within our risk report. So you have to have the capability of understanding which of the risks are not highlighted within the risk report, or in other terms, you should have the capability to understand the shortcomings which appear within your risk report. And at the same time, out of the identified risks, you need to have the capability to understand whether we have come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies, because out of the 6 risks which we have identified within our risk report, when you look at the mitigatory strategies, there needs to be some type of improvement concerning all 6 risks which are highlighted within the risk report. So likewise, you need to gain a good understanding of whether we have identified the necessary risks, and out of the identified risks, whether we have come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies. So on top of these 6 different risks, you have to be conversant with other types of risks as per what can be tested at your examination. So these risks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These risks are highlighted within the risk report, but when developing our mock exams, we have highlighted some additional risks as well, so that you are fully ready to face your examination. And you have to be conversant with internal audit responsibilities as well, because the internal audit function is part and parcel of the internal control environment of your company. And keeping tabs about the internal control environment is one of your prime responsibilities as a senior finance manager. And also, you should have the capability to suggest internal controls to prevent risks from recurring in the future. So likewise, you have to be conversant with all these syllabus areas, but don't worry, we have covered all these syllabus areas when developing our 6 mock exams. So that's how you should tackle your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi, and prepare for interpretation of figures and numbers. You're not expected to do any major calculations. You might have to rework a gearing ratio if there's a question tied to testing your knowledge about funding options. Other than that, all the facts and figures will be shared with you. Your job is to interpret these facts and figures. And when conducting preparations, do not skip any topic, because I've dealt with students, if they are struggling with a certain syllabus area, there's a tendency for them to disregard a certain syllabus area and focus on what they are comfortable with. This is not going to work for your benefit, because, for instance, most of the students are clueless of the beta coefficient. So because of that, they don't learn about beta, or they forget about the beta coefficient, and they focus on other syllabus areas, especially the syllabus areas concerning your E3 syllabus, because the E3 syllabus is highly theoretical. So because of that, there's a tendency for students to stick to E3, whereas forgetting about P3 and F3. But let's assume a beta coefficient related question is thrown at you at your real exam. The weightage is going to be 60 or 70%. If that is the case, you end up losing a chunk of marks. And when you know for a fact that you have lost a lot of marks, you will panic. Panic leads to brain freeze, and you'd screw up the remaining parts of your exam as well. So it's essential that you gain an in-depth understanding of all theoretical elements which can be tested at the exam. That is why we have developed 6 mock exams, with the prime intention of covering all syllabus areas across the 6 mock exams. And that is why we have developed answer plans and master classes with the intention of teaching you the relevant theoretical concepts in a practical sense. And do not rely on predictions, as any area can be examined. So as I mentioned earlier, your job when it comes to attempting mock exams is to get your bearings with how each syllabus area is tested, to fine tune your answering technique, time management, and stress management techniques. But you have to have an open mind during your examination, which will enable you to develop answers which are aligned with the information which is shared with you via each and every scenario during your examination. All right, so that's how you should approach your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So having said that, before we move on to the industry and Preseen analysis, let me quickly tell you what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the SCS page. If you're yet to create a free user account, click on this button and create a free user account. Once you have done so, you will gain access to our student dashboard. And once you are inside the student dashboard, click on My Courses. In front of SCS Free, you would see an Access Content button. And via the Videos tab, you'd gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops we conduct. Then via the Study Material tab, you'd gain access to the syllabus coverage document, the SCS Preseen document, as well as the SCS Preseen mind map. And also via the mocks tab, you will gain access to the questions and answers of the suggested answers of SCS mock exam 1. And via the exams tab, you have the opportunity of attempting SCS mock 1 under exam conditions via our exam platform. So we have developed an exam platform which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you'd attempt your real examination. So this is the best way. Having access to this exam platform is the best way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. However, don't attempt mock 1 right now. Wait until I teach you answering and time management techniques in next week's webinar. After learning these things, you are expected to attempt mock 1 under exam conditions via our exam platform. All right, so create a free user account by clicking on this button. And if you are interested in investing on paid content, click on this button and check the sample material before you do so. And if you're yet to join the SCS WhatsApp discussion forum, click on this button and join it. Via this forum, we will keep you guys informed of the weekly webinar and workshop commencement dates and times. And at the same time, if you have any questions, you can get them addressed instantaneously. I'm always there to help you guys out. And via this same group, we will be sharing a plethora of free resources with you. And talking of what we offer two main packages, the Essential course and the Premium course. The Essential course is intended for those who had completed their OTQ examinations or those who are coming through the general route. So if you had completed your OTQs, you have learned your theory, you have actually mastered all theoretical concepts. So when conducting preparations, your job is to simply improve your application skills. So under the Essential course, you'd gain access to the recordings of all webinars and workshops, 6 mock exams with suggested answers. As I mentioned earlier, we have made sure to cover all syllabus areas across these 6 mocks, which we have shared with you. You'd also gain access to Preseen analysis videos, 4 videos in total. As you know, your Preseen is divided into 4 main parts. So focused on each part, we have conducted a Preseen analysis session. So once you have watched these 4 videos, you will gain an in-depth understanding of what appears within your Preseen document. So you need not try and decrypt Preseen info. We have done it for you. And in a little while, when I'm conducting the Preseen analysis, you will understand what is covered within each of these Preseen analysis videos. And you'd also gain access to the annotated Preseen, the industry and financial analysis slides. A while back, you saw what the annotated Preseen is all about, and you saw the financial analysis slides. And when conducting the industry analysis, I'm going to depend on the industry analysis slides which we have prepared. So in a little while, you'd see what these industry analysis slides are all about. And then you'd also gain access to top 20 likely issue slides, which indicate the most probable scenarios which can be tested at your exam. You will gain access to a case study familiarization kit. Once you have read through this kit, within 10 to 15 minutes, you will gain an in-depth understanding about the technicalities behind your SCS exam. You will also gain access to a tutor-managed live chat and OTQ revision cards. So after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you were struggling with a certain theoretical concept, or if you had forgotten, if you feel that you need to brush up your theoretical knowledge or forgotten a theoretical concept, do not waste time to go through your past notes or bulky study texts. Simply refer to our OTQ revision cards in a jiffy. You are in a position to brush up your theoretical knowledge. So the essential course is priced at £299. And talking about the premium course, this is intended for those who are coming through the exemption routes and those who had failed the SCS exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem. There are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. Therefore, with the intention of teaching you theoretical concepts, covering the entire syllabus, and also to teach you application skills, we have included some additional resources under the premium course on top of what appears under the essential course. So via the premium course, you'd gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all 6 mock exams under exam conditions, which is the best way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will also receive one-on-one tutor feedback on 2 mock exams, namely mocks 4 and 6. Let me quickly show you the type of feedback on offer. As you can see, we have evaluated each and every point, each and every paragraph in depth. And if there are shortcomings, we have highlighted them as tutor notes. And throughout this answer script, you can see the type of feedback we provide at TCS. It's essential that you gain this type of feedback, because then you are in a position to really understand your shortcomings. Because when it comes to seeking feedback, your objective should be to understand your shortcomings, because without understanding your shortcomings, you can't take steps to overcome them when conducting your preparations. And at the very end, we have determined mark allocations on a subtask by subtask basis. Not just marks, we have also indicated a success rate. And by looking at these yellow highlighted areas, you can understand the subtasks in which your performance was substandard. So after receiving this type of feedback, your job is to redevelop answer plans focused on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow, thereby conducting your revision on your own. All right, so this is the type of feedback on offer under the premium course. And you'd also gain access to the answer plans of all 6 mock exams. So this is what a typical, give me a second, please. This is what a typical answer plan looks like. So on top of the suggested answers focused on each mock exam, we are sharing answer plans with you, which makes your life easy when it comes to understanding the logic behind each answer. You will easily understand how to work on theoretical knowledge, how to bring in theoretical knowledge when developing answers, how to work on Preseen application, and also you'd understand how to structure your answers appropriately based on the mark allocations concerning each and every subtask. And this helps, having access to this document helps when it comes to revision, because as per our study process, we expect you to conduct revision by redeveloping answer plans. So when it comes to redeveloping answer plans, you can always check whether your fresh answer plans are accurate or not by comparing your answer plans to TCS's. And you are expected to keep redeveloping answer plans until you are satisfied of the fact that you are capable of developing answer plans which are akin to TCS's. So when doing this process, or when involving yourself with revision, this is the best resource out there, because then you can easily understand which points you need to include and which points you need to avoid when developing answers when tackling different syllabus areas. So you'd gain access to these type of answer plans via the premium course, and you'd also gain access to 15 masterclasses in total. So in the webinars and workshops, we are teaching you the logic behind each answer. Therefore, conducting masterclasses concerning your first mock exam. But from mock exam 2 until mock exam 6, there are 5 mocks in total. And in each mock exam, there are 3 sections, just like in your real exam. So 3 sections into 5 mocks come up to 15 sections in total. So focused on each section, we have developed a masterclass. And these masterclasses are intended to teach you the logic behind each answer, and at the same time teach you the theoretical concept covered in each section, and also to teach you application skills. And by watching these 15 masterclasses, you can, in a jiffy, learn theory and improve application without having to go through theoretical concepts on your own and then learn application skills on your own without you having to waste a lot of time. Simply watch these masterclasses to learn theory and improve your application skills. So the premium course is priced at £849, which can be paid in 2 installments of £424 each, or you can opt to pay in full. If so, you'd save £100, and the price is just £749. So you can invest on your preferred course by clicking on either of these buttons. And let me quickly take you through to the SCS study plan to see what you are supposed to achieve within this week. So we are in week number 2. You are supposed to dedicate 8 hours of study time within this week, and this week is dedicated towards your Preseen document. So watch the Preseen analysis videos. There are 4 videos in total. Watch them to gain an in-depth understanding of the entire Preseen. And once you have done so, go through the annotated Preseen on your own, thereby revising your knowledge. Then refer to the industry and financial analysis slides, therefore further engaging yourself with revision. And once you have covered all these things, you will have a good understanding of the Preseen. Then you can kickstart attempting mock attempts. Don't start mock attempts until I teach you answering and time management technique in next Saturday's webinar. All right, so that's what you're expected to achieve within this week. Having said that, let's move on to the industry and Preseen analysis. So I'm going to kickstart the process by going through the industry dynamics, which are highlighted within our industry analysis slides. Then I'm not going to take you through all the slides in its entirety. Instead, I'm going to focus on the most important points. Then I'm going to move on to a Preseen analysis, thereby taking you through the internal dynamics of your chosen company. All right, so let's try to understand how your market is defined. So this time, Preseen is based on a player within the satellite manufacturing and launching industry. So players within this industry are into designing, manufacturing, launching, and operating satellites. And what type of satellites are we looking at? We are looking at small-sized satellites, or these are known as nano, micro, or cube satellites. And if you look at Leothayre, Leothayre specializes in manufacturing CubeSats or cube satellites. And these type of small satellites are positioned in the LEO or the low Earth orbit. All right, because of its size, that's what you need to know. And as players within this industry, we are into designing, manufacturing, launching, and operating satellites. So we have to design satellites. We have to get in touch with customers and understand their exact needs, and aligning ourselves with these customer needs. We have to design the satellites. Then we have to manufacture them in-house. After manufacturing them, we have to make sure that we launch these satellites. Most small satellite manufacturing companies such as Leothayre, they don't have their own launch capabilities, or they don't have their own launch pads. Instead, they have to rely on third parties to launch these satellites, because in order to launch these satellites, we are supposed to utilize rockets. So we don't manufacture rockets. We are only into designing, manufacturing, and testing satellites. That's what you need to remember. We are only into satellites. We are not into manufacturing rockets. We have to rely on rocket manufacturers to launch these satellites to its intended location. And these satellites can be used to provide or fulfill communication needs of customers, provide navigation related services, and these satellites are used for Earth observation as well, for both for research and military purposes. And then in order to conduct various different research initiatives, customers utilize satellites manufactured by players within this industry. And the main activities carried out by these players to design and manufacture satellites, including standardized bodies like cube satellites. So there's a lot of standardization within this industry. Why is this the case? Because as per what you have learned in your operational case study or at the OCS stage, you would have learned about standard costing. So standard costing is utilized by companies which are into manufacturing standardized products. Why would companies opt for standardization? Because when we standardize, it exposes us to a lot of cost efficiencies. So it's cheaper when you standardize, and these cost benefits or cost advantages can be shared with our customers via reduced prices. So the customers who are utilizing services of players within this industry are looking for cheaper services. So that is why most of the small players within this industry are going for a higher, or opting for a higher level of standardization. And the type of standardized satellites are known as nanosatellites, microsatellites, or simply put, cube satellites or CubeSats. And also, players within this industry negotiate and facilitate satellite launches, as I mentioned earlier. All the players within this industry are into designing, manufacturing, testing, and operating these satellites. They are not into launching. They have to rely on third parties to launch. So that is why players within this industry negotiate with launch providers on behalf of customers, thereby acting as the middlemen between customers and launch service providers. And also, players within this industry provide mission control services via ground stations. So players within this industry, satellite manufacturing companies, most of them have ground stations. Why do you need ground stations? Because once you have launched the satellite to its intended location in the LEO or the low Earth orbit, you need to make sure that you manage the satellite appropriately, and you have to gather a lot of data, and you have to transmit data to the satellite as well. So in order to handle all these data gathering and data transmission elements, and also to manage the satellite or operate the satellite, we need ground stations. And if you look at Leothayre operates its own ground station as well. And looking at the goals of players within this industry, the utmost goal is to deliver satellites efficiently, reliably, and in an affordable manner. So we are totally dependent on launch providers, because the reliability of our satellites are dependent on whether we are launching the satellites to the intended location. Because if the satellite deorbits, then we are not fulfilling the needs of our customers. So we have to achieve reliability as much as possible. We have to manufacture these satellites in the most efficient manner. That's why there's a lot of standardization within this, which you can see within this industry. And we try to make the satellites affordable as much as possible. These satellites, CubeSats, are actually affordable. That's why hobbyists are interested in sending satellites because it's not too expensive. All right, and support is growing for this industry, and global demand is surging due to the demand for open communication, demand for Earth observation, and demand for research insights, especially tied to various different industries. So you are going to learn about all these things in a little while when I'm conducting the Preseen analysis concerning what Leothayre is up to at the moment. And also, players within this industry are pressured to be sustainable as much as possible, because this is an industry which is considered as an industry which is contributing towards carbon emissions. Because when we are launching satellites, there's a lot of soot which pollutes the Earth's atmosphere. And on top of that, when the satellite is brought back to, or when the rocket is brought back to Earth, sometimes the rocket disintegrates, because if you look at the old type of rockets, they usually disintegrate when it hits Earth's atmosphere. And when this is the case, this debris will start to explode, and this in turn will again create soot, which is not too good for the Earth's atmosphere. And sometimes returning rockets might deorbit, and if this is the case, they might land in populous environments, which exposes human beings to accidents. And also, this industry is contributing towards something called the space debris problem. You would have seen a news article towards the very end of your Preseen document. So once you have gone through the first Preseen analysis video, in which I've conducted an industry analysis, you will understand what this space debris problem is all about. So in a nutshell, satellites which are decommissioned keep orbiting within the low Earth orbit, and when it comes to contact with another satellite or a rocket or whatever, it might explode, and these explosions will scatter debris across the space, which in turn creates the space debris problem, which is not too good for the Earth's atmosphere. So likewise, this is an industry which is polluting the environment. So because of that, companies are trying to be sustainable as much as possible. So that is why, if you look at the launch providers, most rocket manufacturers nowadays are trying to make sure that the rocket comes back to Earth in one piece rather than disintegrating and exploding in the low Earth orbit. All right, so this is what this industry is about. So having said that, let me quickly take you to the industry trends, or take you through the industry trends as well. I'm not going to take you through these set of slides in its entirety at your leisure. Please go through these set of slides to gain an in-depth understanding of what happens within your chosen industry. So there's a lot of technological advancements which had come into play within this industry. That is why you see a lot of standardization. A lot of small players are into manufacturing cube satellites because standardization, as I mentioned earlier, had led to cost reduction and efficiency. And there are innovations in propulsion systems as well. Rather than relying on fossil fuels, most companies are trying to rely on renewable energy when it comes to propelling the rockets as well as satellites into their intended location. And there's a lot of sensors being used as well, because customers are seeking additional information about which will help them with their business, especially the type of customers who are looking for up to date or information which is updated on a real-time basis, to do with the agricultural sector, the fracking sector, or the oiling sector, construction sector, the military sector, and whatnot. So they are utilizing a lot of sensors, and these satellites carry their own capability to generate power when they are in the LEO, because almost all satellites have solar panels attached to them, and these solar panels gather energy which can be utilized to power these satellites when they are in the LEO. And there's a lot of vertical integration happening within this industry, because we have to always make sure that we are reliant on suppliers who are supplying us components which are space rated, because these satellites should work in zero gravity. And it's not too easy to test all these satellites whether they function properly or not. Even if we carry out our manufacturing process in the utmost levels of quality, if the suppliers are supplying us with inferior quality components, then the satellites will explode or the satellites will deorbit. So in order to avoid these type of issues, companies are opting for backward vertical integration. Thereby, companies are trying to merge with or acquire suppliers, because if you have direct access to suppliers, if you control the supply chain, then you can make sure that the quality of the components which you receive are at the utmost levels. And also, some major large companies are into acquiring launch providers or launch pads as well. So that's a forward vertical integration which we are looking at. So smaller companies don't have the money to invest on acquiring or merging with launch providers. Instead, large companies are into acquiring launch operations, and mission management is another crucial area. So most companies try to, even small ones, try to manage their own ground stations, because after a satellite is sent to the LEO, your job doesn't end there. Instead, you have to make sure that you manage the satellite, you gather data from the satellite, and you transmit data to the satellite and operate the satellite. So in order to do all these things, you need to have your own ground stations. So some companies rely on third-party ground stations, but nowadays companies are trying to build their own ground stations, or merge with or acquire ground stations out there. And also there's a high level of focus on sustainability, because I was talking about certain ways in which this industry harms the environment. So most players are trying to figure out ways in which they can uphold sustainability as much as possible. And if you look at the Preseen, there's a mention of a space junk charter which the government has introduced. So definitely this is going to be tested at the exam. So there's a lot of laws and regulations coming into play if you really look at the real life industry dynamics with the intention of reining players within this industry. And also, as I mentioned earlier, satellite launching companies or the rocket manufacturers are designing rockets as well as satellites which are intended to re-enter Earth without disintegrating within the LEO. And there are geopolitical considerations which we have to be aware of as well, which exposes us to political risk. So there's increased importance leading to government investments in domestic satellite capabilities. So if you look at the wealthy nations, they have their own, the governments have their own agendas with regards to gathering information via satellites, and on top of that they utilize satellites for military purposes. So because of that, in most advanced countries, the governments are key players within the satellite industry. They fund a lot of satellite companies because they want to fulfill their military and information needs. And also there's a lot of regulations coming into play, as I mentioned earlier, with the intention of making sure that players within this industry operate in the most sustainable manner. So these are the industry trends which is impacting your industry, and therefore these elements can be tested at your examination. All right. So having said that, I'm going to direct your attention towards the Preseen document. So I'm going to conduct the analysis, thereby explaining the internal dynamics of your chosen company. So I hope you would have gained a good understanding of what your industry is about. We are not into manufacturing rockets. We are not launching our satellites. Instead, we are only into manufacturing satellites. So you need to understand clearly what we are up to. All right, so let's look at your company and what it is up to, considering its past. So looking at Leothayre, we were founded in the year 2004. So we have been in operation for 10 plus years, which is good for our reputation. And since 2017, we have operated as a quoted company, and we are into selling satellites and satellite constellations. So you don't, if you had not gone through the Preseen analysis videos which we have conducted so far, then you won't know what these satellite constellations are. But I've covered this element in depth in the first Preseen analysis session, which can be accessed via the paid content. Please go watch the first Preseen analysis video, then you'd understand what satellite constellations are. So we are into manufacturing and selling satellites and satellite constellations. And we design and build small satellites. What you need to remember is we are a small player within this industry. So therefore, we are not manufacturing large satellites. Instead, we are building small satellites. And also, in addition to manufacturing, designing and manufacturing small satellites, we offer complete satellite services, which includes initial consultation, which is carried out with each and every customer. So our engineers get in touch with our customers to understand what their needs are, what their mission needs are, and then based on the findings of this initial consultation, our engineers move on to designing and building satellites. After we design and build satellites, we have to test them to see whether they work in zero gravity. That's why we have our own testing facility. And then we deal with launch providers so that the customers are in a position to send the satellites which we manufactured to the intended location. And after launching these satellites via our ground stations, we operate these satellites, thereby gathering and transmitting data to and from these satellites. And the main products which we manufacture are known as Leothayre standard. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of standardization which is practiced within this industry. So therefore, our main products are known as Leothayre standard because we are manufacturing and selling standardized products. So what type of products are we? Standardized products are we manufacturing? We are manufacturing cube satellites or CubeSats, which comes in a cube. And there are three different sizes when you look at the CubeSats which are manufactured by Leothayre, which come in 3U, 6U, and 12U sizes. And each of these satellites carry solar panel arrays with the intention of gathering energy, which will help the functionality of each of these satellites. And these satellites can be adapted, these standardized products can be adapted to accommodate customer sensors. So if customers need some additional sensors, these sensors can be fixed into our standardized products. So yes, we are selling a standardized product, but we offer some type of flexibility to our customers as well, so that we can attach additional sensors as and when necessary. And our standard product is the easiest and quickest to adapt and build, because as I mentioned earlier, when a company opts for standardization, then we can significantly improve the efficiency of manufacturing. Therefore, the costs will decrease significantly as well. So looking at the standard product category, connecting it with our mission timelines, our standard products are known as repeat builds because we are building the same thing over and over again. And when dealing with our standard products or our repeat builds, it takes us 4 to 6 months to manufacture a cube set. However, if a customer wants a totally new type of product or a bespoke product, then it takes us 12 to 18 months to manufacture a bespoke satellite. So that is why we are focusing on standardization. That is why we try to push customers towards standardized products, because then we can fulfill the needs of customers in an instantaneous manner, as opposed to and in a cost-effective manner, as opposed to us having to work for 12 to 18 months to satisfy a customer, thereby addressing the customer's unique needs, and therefore we'd have to charge a high price as well. And looking at how we conduct our sales and operations, how we had conducted our sales and operations in the past, we have already launched 64 Leothayre designed and manufactured satellites, which is good for our reputation. And there are substantial orders in pipeline as well, which indicates the fact that customers trust us. And we have sold to clients across the world, which exposes us to a certain set of risks, which I'm going to highlight in a little while. However, it's good to have a global clientele. And our reputation is based on meeting deadlines at all times and achieving mission objectives. So tied to this second objective, which is to achieve mission objectives, we have to make sure that we select the most capable launch providers, because just imagine us procuring the best type of components and conducting our manufacturing, designing, manufacturing, and testing processes in the most efficient manner. However, due to an issue with the launch provider, the satellite deorbits, or the satellite is not dropped to its intended location. When this happens, our customers will be dissatisfied, and we are going against our reputation, because we are well known to achieve mission objectives. We can't achieve mission objectives when we end up dissatisfying our clients. So in order to uphold these two elements, uphold our reputation, we have to look at meeting our deadlines at all times and achieving mission objectives. And as I mentioned earlier, mission timelines are for repeat builds or the standardized products 4 to 6 months, and for new products or bespoke products 12 to 18 months. Okay. And looking at the products and services, the production and service process of our company, you have to be conversant with 4 main elements. First things first, engineers. When conducting the initial consultation, engineers analyze clients' missions and recommend solutions, and therefore the engineers determine the type of sensors needed within each of these satellites which we manufacture, the size of the satellite, and the cost of launching. And once we have figured everything out, then we focus our attention towards designing, building, and testing the satellites within our own workshop. And when we are manufacturing these satellites, we always make sure to use space certified components. If not, these satellites will not work in zero gravity. And we have to ensure the build, hinged solar panels, and antenna survive launch and deployment. So these satellites should work in the LEO, yes, but these satellites should also survive the launch process as well. So that's what we intend to achieve within our workshops when we are designing, building, and testing our satellites. Also, we are involved with collaborating with launch providers on behalf of our clients, because we don't have our own rockets. We don't manufacture rockets. We don't have our own launch capabilities, or we don't have our own launch pad. So because of that, we have to rely on third parties, and therefore we negotiate with launch providers on behalf of our customers. And sometimes customers find their own launch providers as well. And we run our own ground station to control the mission, as I mentioned earlier. And if the customers are in need of additional information or additional support, we get in touch with third-party providers and share the support as and when necessary with our customers. So concerning the way in which we conduct our production and service processes, the possible exam scenarios which can be tested is with regards to the type of risks which we are exposed to. We are exposed to political, economic, country, and forex risk, especially given the fact that we are dealing with launch providers who are spread across the world, and at the same time, we are dealing with global customers, and therefore, we have to fall in line with international standards, global regulations, which impact this industry, which exposes us to political, economic, country, as well as forex risk. And also, we are exposed to operational risks, not just due to how we operate as a company, but we might be exposed to operational risks due to suppliers supplying us with inferior quality components, which will impact the success of our satellite, the functionality of our satellite. Also, we are dependent on launch providers. If they screw something up, then it will impact the launch in an adverse manner, which in turn exposes us to operational risks. And if we are exposed to operational risks, we'll be exposed to reputational risks as well. And these reputational risks in turn will create other additional risks, especially tied to shareholder satisfaction, because if our reputation is negatively impacted, it will negatively impact the relationship which we have with our shareholders. Because of that, the share price might drop. With the share price dropping, it might impact the financial standing of our company, because if you are in need of additional cash investments in the future, if the shareholders are dissatisfied, we can't opt for shareholders funds or equity financing. So likewise, reputational impacts will create a plethora of issues for us. And we are also relying on a limited number of customers as per what's highlighted within your risk report. This risk is actually highlighted within your risk report. We are reliant on a limited number of customers, and if we lose one single customer, it will impact our bottom line in an adverse manner. Why am I saying this? Because we are a small company, so we are totally dependent on our customers. If we lose one single customer, then we'd run out of cash. So that's another problem. And also, we are relying on launch providers. And as I mentioned earlier, if launch providers don't do their job properly, and because of that, the mission is impacted negatively, then it will impact our reputation, and it will therefore expose us to legal risks as well, because we'd have to face litigation when dealing with disgruntled customers. And also, by operating within this industry, we are exposed to compliance risk as well, because we have to comply not only with DASLAN's laws and regulations, we have to comply with international rules and regulations concerning our industry. And as a senior finance manager, you should not only have the capability to identify risks, you should have the capability to manage each type of risk as well. So when it comes to managing risks, as I mentioned earlier, first things first, at the inception of today's session, I mentioned the fact that when dealing with a question tied to risk management, first things first, before we try to manage each type of risk, we have to categorize these risks concerning the TARA framework. So you have to be conversant about all these areas, and also expect to evaluate mergers and acquisitions which are tied to vertical integration, because as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of vertical integration happening within this industry, irrespective of whether Leothayre is a small or a large company. We can integrate ourselves with a supplier, and at the same time, I don't think we will go for an acquisition of a launch provider, because we don't have cash to do such an investment, but we can easily acquire a component supplier. So evaluating mergers and acquisitions, or evaluating us pursuing vertical integration, will definitely be tested at your examination. So the syllabus areas tested tied to these exam scenarios are with regards to risk identification and mitigation, which is highlighted within your P3 syllabus. You will have to evaluate mergers and acquisitions or vertical integrations, and various different tools can be used to conduct these type of evaluations, which can be tested, which falls in line with your E3 syllabus. And since we are exposed to political risk, your knowledge pertinent to Porter's diamond, which appears within your E3 syllabus, can be tested. And we have to be sustainable. and as a quoted company, we have to be ethical at all times. So your knowledge pertinent to sustainability and ethics can be tested. And whenever we are pursuing a merger or an acquisition, you have to conduct competitor analysis. So your knowledge pertinent to competitor analysis, which falls under your E3 syllabus, will definitely be tested at your examination. All right, so having said that, let's look at the mission, vision, and values of your company. So first things first, looking at the mission statement. The mission statement gives us an indication of the reason for being, or addresses the question, why do we exist? So as per the mission statement, we are existing as a company to lead in creating and operating satellites, and also to meet client needs for space-based facilities. So our mission is customer-centric, and we are striving to lead this industry as much as possible. And looking at the vision statement, the vision statement typically gives us an indication of what we strive to achieve in the future. So we strive to provide space-based facilities to enhance the quality of life on Earth, which gives us an indication that we are open to deal with various different customers, thereby fulfilling their various different needs. Because we are not in the business of gathering data and sharing it with customers. Instead, we are fulfilling the needs of various different customers, and these customers, by gathering our data, by utilizing our data, will make sure that they take steps to enhance the quality of life on Earth. So that's our vision. And looking at our values or our belief system, we believe in excellence at all times, because we have to be excellent in the way in which we conduct manufacturing processes, especially in this industry, because our satellites need to work in zero gravity. And on top of that, we have to constantly innovate, because as I mentioned earlier, as part of the industry analysis, I said that there's a lot of technological advancements taking place within this industry. So with the rapid pace of growth within this industry, we have to fall in line. We have to constantly innovate as well. So it's good to believe in constant innovation, and we strive to achieve fairness and respect at work, and create strong client relationships, because if we have strong client relationships, then it will impact our bottom line in a positive manner. And also, we try to uphold integrity by never over promising. So if we over promise and if we go back on our word, then we are not being honest. So we try to be honest at all times, thereby trying to never over promise. So overall analysis, by looking at the mission, vision, and values of our company, the overall analysis is the fact that we need to analyze stakeholders based on power and interest, which falls in line with your E3 syllabus concerning the Mendelow's matrix. Why am I saying this? Because we are dealing with hordes of stakeholders. We are dealing with various different suppliers who end up supplying space grade components to us, and we are dealing with our own internal employees, which comprise of designers, engineers, manufacturing staff, and whatnot. Also, we have to deal with launch providers. We have to deal with our ground station staff, and as and when necessary, we have to deal with third-party service providers. And also, we are dealing with customers who are spread across the world. We are dealing with various different governments and their regulations. So definitely, you have to have the capability of analyzing stakeholders. And when doing so, you need to consider the power and interest of each and every stakeholder. And we can see, based on the values of our company, we strive to achieve fairness and respect at work, which indicates the fact that employee well-being is considered. And also, we strive to achieve strong client relationships, which indicates that customer relationships are also considered also one of our concerns. So your knowledge pertinent to GRI or integrated reporting, which falls in line with your F3 syllabus, can be tested. And looking at the shortcomings, there is no mention of safety and reliability within our mission, vision, or value statements. So this is a major issue, because safety and reliability should be a core component of a company which operates within this industry. So safety is key. There's no mention of safety. We are only striving to achieve fairness and respect at work. There's no mention of safety. And if we are to achieve our mission, if we are to meet client needs for space-based facilities, if we are to lead, and also if we are to, in the future, provide space-based facilities to enhance quality of life on Earth, then we have to achieve a higher level of reliability as well. So we have to integrate safety and reliability into our operations, because if not, our reputation will be adversely impacted. And when our reputation is adversely impacted, it will impact our operations, our profitability, as well as our financial standing of as a company. And looking at, there's no mention of collaborations, because as I mentioned earlier, we must collaborate with hordes of stakeholders, especially our suppliers and launch providers, but there's no mention about these type of collaborations or the benefit of these type of collaborations within our mission, vision, and value statements. So it's essential that we update our mission, vision, or value statements to include information about collaboration, because it's essential since Leothayre relies on suppliers, launch providers, and other third parties. And also, there's absolutely no mention of sustainability and emissions. As I mentioned earlier, we are operating within an industry which is polluting the environment heavily. So because of that, governments are pushing companies to achieve sustainability, be environmentally conscious. However, as per our vision, mission, and value statements, there's no mention of us striving to achieve sustainability and reduce our emissions. So the government has already signed something called the Space Junk Charter. When this is the case, when operating in this type of an environment, it makes absolutely no sense for us to operate without thinking of sustainability and emissions. So tied to all this information, the probable exam scenarios which can be tested is to evaluate strategic options. So, definitely there will be a situation where we are striving to do something new, or we are going for vertical integration, or we are opting for some type of related diversification. When doing so, these are considered as strategic options. So you should have the capability of evaluating strategic options utilizing the SAF analysis or the SAF framework, as I mentioned at the very inception of this session. So why should you look at the SAF framework? Because by conducting an analysis based on the SAF framework, you are conducting a holistic evaluation. So you are supposed to look at the suitability of the strategic initiative. When looking at suitability, you are trying to figure out whether the strategic option at our disposal is aligned with the vision, mission, and values of your chosen company, aligned with the way in which we had operated in the past. That's suitability. And looking at acceptability, we are trying to figure out how our stakeholders will be impacted due to us pursuing a certain strategic initiative. We are trying to figure out whether our major stakeholders will be satisfied or not. That's acceptability. And when looking at feasibility, we are looking at resource availability. We are trying to figure out whether, in order to implement a certain strategic initiative, we have the necessary financial and non-financial resources. So we can come up with the best type of decisions, which is totally aligned with our vision, mission, and values. We can come up with decisions which are intended to satisfy our major stakeholders. However, if we don't have the financial and non-financial resources, we cannot implement these decisions. So that's why you need to utilize something like the SAF framework to conduct a holistic analysis concerning a strategic option. Likewise, you should have the capability to evaluate a strategic option considering the mission, vision, and values of your chosen company. Also, you have to have the capability to recommend internal controls in relation to achieving excellence or efficiency in operations, achieving innovation, achieving safety. You have to recommend internal controls with the intention of managing different types of risks which are highlighted within each scenario at your examination, and how to uphold ethics and sustainability. All these things, in order to achieve all these things, we have to implement internal controls. So as the senior finance manager, you should have the capability of recommending internal controls so that we are poised to achieve these things in a successful manner. And as I mentioned earlier, your knowledge pertaining to stakeholder management will be tested. So you should have the capability of suggesting internal controls to keep tabs about the performance of the suppliers, launch providers, customers, employees, our relationships with various different governments and the general public, because as I mentioned earlier, if one of our satellites deorbit, it might fall to a populous area. If that is the case, it will devastate a certain populous area. So this in turn will expose us to some type of resistance from the general public. So we have to impose internal controls with the intention of safeguarding or upholding the security of the general public. And pressure groups will definitely work against us because we are operating in an industry which is polluting the environment, and we are exposing human beings to a lot of risks as well. So because of that, we should come up with you should have the capability of suggesting internal controls which are intended to manage pressure groups as well. All right, so that's that. Having said that, let's move on to the board of directors and try to figure out what our board members are up to. So I'm not going to take you through all this information, at leisure. You can, go through all this highlighted info. I've simply come up with a study summary. So looking at the board members, they are skilled, educated, and experienced, which is good, which is a significant strength which we possess. And they have appropriate industry knowledge as well as they have experience within Leothayre, because all our board members had worked within Leothayre previously before they were appointed to board positions. So this is good for us. It's good to have individuals who are conversant with what happens within the industry and also conversant with what happens within our chosen company. And they are looking at their backgrounds or expertise. There are various different engineers coming from electronic, mechanical, and aeronautical engineering backgrounds. And if you look at our CFO, this individual is competent with banking because he was a banker before he joined us. And looking at the marketing and sales director, I'm not too satisfied with the skills and capabilities of the marketing and sales director. I'm going to highlight these points in a little while. Why I'm not too satisfied with the skills the marketing and sales director possesses. And there's another non-executive director who comes from politics. So this will help us when conducting CPA or corporate political activities, such as conducting lobbying and bridging strategies. And we have academia within our board as well, which is good for recruitments and research initiatives. And we have a non-executive director who is well versed with research and development tied to economics, environmental studies, and urbanization. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's no mention of sustainability within our company. So if we are to achieve sustainability, then we can utilize the knowledge possessed by this R&D director or this non-executive director who comes from an R&D background, because this individual is well versed with environmental studies. And looking at the board balance, there's an imbalance between executive directors and independent non-executive directors, which exposes us to governance risk. So as per what's highlighted within the Combined Code of Corporate Governance, it is mentioned that it's good to have a good balance between executive directors and non-executive directors. However, if you look at our board, the composition of Leothayre's board, there are 5 executive directors, but just 4 independent non-executive directors. So it's essential that we appoint a new director with the intention of achieving the necessary board balance. Why are we supposed to have the same amount of execs and non-executive directors? With the intention of representing shareholder interests within the board in a successful manner. So the executive directors are supposed to work on behalf of the shareholders. They are known as the agents of the company. However, when operating, they might pursue their own interests. So in order to avoid such a situation, we are supposed to appoint independent non-executive directors, and these independent non-executive directors are supposed to represent shareholder interests within the board. If they figure out that the board is not fulfilling the needs of shareholders, instead the board members are trying to fulfill their own needs, then these independent non-executive directors can go for an extraordinary general meeting and inform the shareholders of such directors who are pursuing their own needs. So that's why you need to have a good balance between executive directors and non-executive directors, which cannot be seen if you look at our board's composition. And some board members have held academic posts, which is good for research and development initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, and also good for recruitments. So considering all this information, the overall analysis is the fact that board responsibilities are properly allocated. However, there are certain shortcomings as well. There is a lack of focus on commercial strategy, which goes beyond traditional marketing. So I said that I'm not too satisfied with the marketing and sales director's exposure. So let me quickly explain what this point is about. So if you look at the marketing director, he had a junior administrative role in the sales department of a major aircraft manager. So this individual had held a junior administrative role within a sales department of a major aircraft manager. So this type of exposure is not actually beneficial for a company such as us, because we are into manufacturing satellites, and these satellites should work in the LEO. It should work in zero gravity. So there's a lot of technicalities involved. There's a lot of engineering involved. There's a lot of testing which takes place. And we are dealing with global clients who are spread across the world. And these clients have various different needs. So when dealing with these type of customers, and when conducting our manufacturing and designing and testing operations, it's essential that we focus on a commercial strategy rather than focusing on carrying out traditional marketing initiatives. So that's why I'm saying that our marketing and sales director does not possess the appropriate knowledge and expertise to drive our commercial strategy, which should move beyond traditional marketing. And there's a lack of focus on risk management and compliance. Although we have a separate risk committee, none of the members come from a risk management background. They are not well versed with risk management. Although we have a risk committee, it's a good thing to have a risk committee. However, we have to make sure that we the composition of the risk committee, we have to ensure that those who are working within the risk committee are well versed with identifying and mitigating risks. But you cannot see it when looking at the composition of our risk committee, because none of our independent non-executive directors who form up the risk committee come from a risk management background. So that's a major issue within our company tied to board responsibilities, or corporate governance. And there's a lack of focus on sustainability. That is why there's no mention of sustainability within our vision, mission, and value statements. And we don't have a separate board member who looks into sustainability. There's no hard and fast rule which says that we should have a separate board member. At least we should have a board committee which looks into the environmental concerns or sustainability. So, however, we don't have a board committee or a separate board member who is looking into sustainability. So that's another shortcoming. And I think that the operations director might be overburdened, because this operations director has too much on his plate, because this individual has to liaise with launch partners, which is a crucial element of our business, as I mentioned earlier. And at the same time, this individual has to look into health and safety as well as human resources management. So I think it's better to appoint a separate director or a non-executive director who is supposed to look into health and safety and HR, because health and safety and HR goes hand in hand. So we can appoint, for instance, since there's a lack of independent non-executive director within our board, we can appoint a new independent non-executive director to look into health and safety and HR needs of our employees. All right, so that's another shortcoming which we need to overcome. So the solutions which I've mentioned with the intention of overcoming these shortcomings is to appoint an executive or non-executive director with risk management expertise, and at the same time, appoint a separate executive or non-executive director who is well versed with commercial strategy, who is well versed with HR strategy, and at the same time, you might have to appoint a sustainability committee so that we start believing in sustainability. So, tied to this information, the probable exam scenarios which can be tested are with regards to the board composition versus corporate governance. I highlighted certain shortcomings a while back. Then you'd have to have a good understanding about board responsibilities, how to restructure the board. Given the fact that there are certain shortcomings within the board, we might have to go for a board restructure. You should have a good understanding of how to go for these type of restructuring. And also you might have to appoint a board committee such as the sustainability committee, and you might have to appoint an executive director or a non-executive director, or you might have to evaluate between the appointment of an executive director and a non-executive director. And you might see a situation where we end up dismissing a director. You should know how to deal with a post-dismissal environment, and how to deal with directors' remuneration. As you know, the directors are not supposed to determine their own salaries. Instead, it should be handled by the remuneration committee. So likewise, you need to think in terms of the composition of the remuneration committee, whether it's structured properly, and all that you have to be conversant with. And you have to also think in terms of how to conduct lobbying or corporate political activity in the most ethical manner, and how to deal with disclosures with the intention of upholding ethical values. All right, so all these elements are covered within the 6 mocks which we have developed. All right, so having said that, let's look at the board committees. I'm not going to talk about board responsibilities. As you can see, there's a CEO, and under the CEO, there are 4 different directors. So watch the second Preseen analysis video, which you can access via the paid content to gain an in-depth understanding of the board responsibilities concerning the way in which our board members function. I just want to direct your attention towards the board committees and how they are structured. So as you can see, there are 4 different board committees: the Audit, Risk, Remuneration, and Nomination Committee. And we are therefore falling in line with corporate governance guidance, which is highlighted in the Combined Code of Corporate Governance, which is practiced in the UK. However, there are shortcomings as well. The non-executive chair should not be in the audit committee. So in the audit committee, you can see the non-executive chair. As per corporate governance guidance, 100% of the members within the audit committee should be independent non-executive directors. You cannot have the chairman within the audit committee. So that's a problem if you look at the way in which we have structured our committees. And this exposes us to governance risks. And looking at the remaining committees, as per corporate governance guidance, independent non-executive directors should hold majority positions within each of these committees. And you can see that looking at the risk, remuneration, and nomination committees, the majority is held by independent non-executive directors, which is good. We are falling in line with corporate governance best practices. And as per what's highlighted here, the chief internal auditor reports to the convener of the audit committee. So the chief internal auditor, the audit committee is supposed to set the control environment of the organization, and therefore the chief internal auditor should report to the audit committee. And again, we are falling in line with corporate governance best practices. So tied to all this information, your knowledge pertaining to the Combined Code of Corporate Governance, which is practiced in the UK, which appears within your E3 and P3 syllabi, can be tested at the examination. Okay, so let me get rid of these annotations. Give me a second, please. Okay, then let's have a look at the principal risk report. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 6 different risks mentioned within Leothayre's risk report. And as a senior finance manager, you should have the capability of understanding whether we have identified all the risks. As per the evaluation which I've conducted, within this annotated Preseen, I've highlighted certain shortcomings within our risk report because we have not identified certain risks which we should have identified. This could be due to this shortcoming, could be due to the fact that our audit committee's composition, none of the members of the audit committee, not the audit committee, the risk committee, none of the members who make up the risk committee come from a risk identification and management related background. So that's why they might not have really understood or mentioned all the risks within the risk report of Leothayre. So that's the first element. You need to have the capability to understand whether we have identified all the risks. And if there are any shortcomings, you need to come up with your own evaluations, thereby highlight the type of risks we should have included within the risk report. Secondly, you should have the capability of understanding whether the company had come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies with the intention of managing each type of risk identified with this risk report. So in order to make your life easy, I've come up with evaluations in here. I've evaluated each and every risk, and at the same time I've come up with enhancements if there are any shortcomings. So as you can see, I'm not going to take you through the risk report in its entirety because I've already done so via the Preseen analysis videos, which can be accessed via the paid content. I'm simply going to direct your attention towards one single risk which I've evaluated, so that you'd gain an in-depth understanding of how to deal with the risk report which appears within your Preseen. So the fifth risk which we have identified is client dependency risk, because as I mentioned earlier, we are dependent on a small number of customers, and if we lose one single customer, it will impact our finances in an extremely negative manner. So the type of mitigatory action adopted by our company is to monitor client needs. So we try to, with the intention of satisfying customers, because if we are to retain our customers, we have to satisfy them. So in order to satisfy our customers, we have to monitor client needs. That's exactly what we are doing, and ensure that progress and potential contract overruns are addressed promptly. So if there are contract overruns, then it will dissatisfy customers. So we try to retain them as much as possible by keeping tabs about our contracts. So the assessment is the fact that these controls are reactive rather than them being proactive. If we are to prevent these issues from occurring, if we are to insulate us fully against client dependency risk, then we have to come up with proactive strategies to mitigate these risks. However, the type of risk mitigation strategies which we are using at the moment are reactive and does not provide a long-term solution. There's no point of monitoring client needs. Instead, we have to take action to make sure that we get in touch with some additional customer segments which will effectively reduce our dependency on a small number of customers. And if we take steps to reduce our dependency on a small number of customers, we are taking steps to eradicate the fifth risk which appears within our risk report. So with the intention of coming up with proactive strategies, I've highlighted enhancements. First things first, we have to take steps to broaden our client base. When it comes to broadening our client base, we have to go for something called a satellite as a service model, or a SaaS model. In a little while, you will understand what a SaaS model is all about. So this is a new revenue generating path. If we go down this route, definitely we can take steps to reduce our client dependency. And on top of that, we can opt for collaborative projects with government entities, because as per what's highlighted within your Preseen document, our government is really helping this industry. They are dealing with major players within this industry. So if we can reach out to the government and sign a contract with them, we will be benefited by recurring revenue streams, and these recurring revenue streams will ensure that our client dependency risk decreases significantly. So likewise, you should have the capability of, first things first, understanding the risk which is highlighted, understanding whether we have come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies or not. And in addition to that, you should have the capability to suggest enhancements with the intention of insulating ourselves from each of the risks which are highlighted within the risk report. So since I said that I'm going to talk about the SaaS model, let me quickly move on to the last part of your Preseen document. So I'm going to direct your attention towards the fourth news article which appears within your Preseen document. So this article includes information about clients investing on satellite-based weather data. All right. And why are customers investing on satellite-based weather data? Because they cannot rely on weather forecasts carried out by the Wexland Met Office, because the Wexland Met Office is providing outdated information. So the type of customers who are relying on real-time data, who are relying on accurate data, cannot rely on the Wexland Met Office's services. So that's why these companies are opting to invest on satellite-based weather data. And what type of companies are we talking about? Large farming companies, because when it comes to farming, you need to have a good understanding of weather forecasts as well as what the current weather is going to be. The same could be said about building. Before pouring cement, you need to know whether it's going to rain or not. And when operating oil rigs or when operating fracking operations, you need to gain an understanding of the weather conditions, because especially if you have an oil rig at the sea, if you are facing a storm, you cannot operate the oil rig or conduct fracking operations. So all these types of companies rely on real-time data. That is why they are investing on satellite-based weather data. So this if we exploit the needs of these type of customers, this enables us to open doors for a new type of customers, and at the same time additional revenue streams. So the probable exam scenarios which can be tested are tied to pursuing revenue diversification by opting for satellite as a SaaS or a satellite as a service or a SaaS model. So what is a SaaS model or what is a satellite as a service model? At present, we are only fulfilling the needs of customers. So customers get in touch with us, and in order to fulfill the needs of our customers, we manufacture, design and test satellites, and we get in touch with launch providers, and we send the satellites to its intended location. So we are dealing with customers and just fulfilling the needs of our direct customers. However, we can pursue this type of related diversification in which we send our own satellites to the LEO with the intention of gathering data and selling this data to interested customers such as large farming companies, builders, and oil rigs, operators of oil rigs. So that is what a satellite as a service business is about. So this business is dependent on information. So since we are well versed with manufacturing satellites and satellite constellations, we can send satellites and satellite constellations to the LEO with the intention of gathering data. We have our own ground stations which can be utilized in this business model. So we can gather data and sell this data to interested parties. That is what a SaaS model is all about. So we are dependent on a small number of customers as per our risk report. So this dependency can be significantly reduced if we go down this road, thereby opting for revenue diversification. And in order to do so, you have to invest on data analytics technology, because we cannot simply sell data. Instead, we have to sell information to our clients. So we have to have the capability to analyze data. So in order to analyze data, we'd have to do some investments tied to data analytics software. So your knowledge pertinent to funding options can be tested at the examination when opting for these type of investments. We can opt for debt or equity. So your knowledge pertinent to funding options can be tested. And also, we might have to partner up with weather forecasting firms if we are selling weather-related data, because although we are a satellite manufacturing company, although we have our ground stations, we are not too conversant with dealing with weather forecasts. So in order to do these forecasts, we might have to get in touch with weather forecasting firms which carry the capabilities of utilizing our data to conduct accurate forecasts. And if data, for instance, is shared with oil companies, it might attract criticism from pressure groups, because we are operating in an industry which is polluting the environment. And when we are providing our services to pollutants, such as businesses which run oil rigs, then this will create unnecessary or additional pressures for us when operating within this industry. And also when dealing with data sets, it exposes us to data security and privacy, because when we are gathering data and sharing these data sets with various different customers, we have to make sure that we secure the data and we uphold data privacy at all times. So the syllabus areas which can be tested are with regards to scenario planning. So before pursuing this type of revenue diversification, in order to gain an in-depth understanding of the pros and cons or the various different scenarios and the types of opportunities and threats these scenarios might expose us to, you have to have the capability to conduct a scenario planning exercise by considering at least 3 scenarios. and your knowledge pertaining to the SAF framework can be tested. When pursuing this diversification, you should have the capability to utilize the SAF framework to conduct your evaluation. Then when dealing with within this industry, when pursuing the SaaS business model, definitely we'd have to deal with additional stakeholders. When doing so, you should have the capability of managing them, and the tool which you can use to manage stakeholders is the Mendelow's matrix. And as I mentioned earlier, if there are investments, additional investments needed to improve our analytics capabilities and forecasting capabilities, your knowledge pertaining to funding options will be tested. And when going down this route, our business ecosystem changes. So, you should have the capability of understanding how our business ecosystem changes due to us opting for a SaaS business model. And when doing something new, this exposes us to a lot of change. So you should have the capability of managing change or coming up with strategies to overcome resistance to change. And also you should have the understanding of how the risks which we are exposed to when doing something new will impact our share price, and therefore and you should have the capability to understand how it will impact our beta, and how these additional risks will impact our stakeholders. And also your knowledge pertaining to risk identification and mitigation concerning operational risks when going down this route, technological risks which we might be exposed to, and if you are exposed to operational and or technological risks, we'd be exposed to reputational risks, and these reputational risks will expose us to legal risks as well. And when dealing with data sets, as I mentioned earlier, we are exposed to data security and privacy risks. And in order to manage each type of risk, you should have the capability of utilizing the TARA framework, as I mentioned throughout this session. And you should also know how to update the risk register. There's a way in which you should update the risk register. And also you should have the capability to suggest internal controls to prevent certain risks from materializing in the future, especially when we are trying to do something new, such as pursuing the SaaS business model. All right, so this news article is totally relevant to the fifth risk which is highlighted within your risk report. All right, so likewise there are certain risks as well. I've evaluated all six risks, and on top of that, I've highlighted notable gaps within by considering what appears within your principal risk report as well. So I'm simply going to explain one single gap within your risk report because we are running out of time. So there's no mention of cybersecurity risk. So let's assume we go for a SaaS business model in which we are supposed to gather data on behalf of our clients. So when doing so, definitely we are exposed to cybersecurity risk. And on top of that, we are already dealing with hordes of stakeholders, and we are gathering data and transmitting data to and from satellites via our ground stations. However, there is no mention of the type of cybersecurity risks which we are exposed to and the type of mitigatory action which we have implemented with the intention of upholding data security and privacy. So this is a major issue which our company has not identified. Therefore, definitely this element can be tested at your real examination. So you should have the capability, if this type of a risk is highlighted at your examination, you should have the capability to come up with appropriate mitigatory action to prevent or to manage our cybersecurity risk exposure. So that's why I've highlighted recommendations in here. So with the intention of managing cybersecurity risk, we have to come up with a cybersecurity framework. And in this framework, we have to determine how we should conduct penetration testing, because without conducting penetration tests, we won't understand how secure our data sets are. Also, we should focus our attention towards developing secure data transmission protocols, because as I mentioned earlier, we are not just gathering data from satellites, we are transmitting data as well. So hackers can gain entry to our systems via our ground stations when we are transmitting as well as gathering data. So we have to handle our data transmission protocols in the most efficient and secure manner. And we have to come up with robust access controls and encryption systems, because as I mentioned earlier, hackers can gain entry to our systems. Not just hackers, our own employees. If there aren't any controls to prevent unauthorized access, our own employees can gain access to our data sets, which will expose us to cybersecurity risks. So with that in mind, we have to come up with access controls and encryption systems. Also, it's essential that we come up with an incident response plan, and we inform all employees and stakeholders of our company about this incident response plan, because whenever we are exposed to a cybersecurity breach, then our employees will know how to react to such a situation when we have implemented an incident response plan. So likewise, I showed you the connection between the risk report and a news article, and also I explained notable gaps. One of the gaps, by looking at the way in which we run our business and comparing our business operations to the risk report. So I've dealt with students who end up failing this examination because of relying on past exam variants. The evaluation or the analysis which I conducted in the past 15 minutes proves the fact that you cannot rely on past exam variants, because past exam variants or past papers are based on a totally different Preseen document, and the risk report, which is applicable to Leothayre, is not applicable to Leothayre, cannot be applied to a totally different company. So if you are planning to rely on past variants, you will be misdirected, because first things first, the risk report is totally different. So when this is the case, you will not understand the shortcomings in your risk report, and at the same time, you will not understand out of the identified risks whether we have come up with appropriate mitigatory strategies or not. So that's why it's essential that you conduct your preparations focused on Preseen specific study resources and Preseen specific mock exams. So I invite you to watch all 4 Preseen analysis videos, then you will gain an in-depth understanding of what happens within your industry, what happens within your chosen company, and what appears within the financial statements of your chosen company and its closest competitor. And lastly, you will understand what appears within the news articles of your Preseen document. All right, so that's what I wanted to highlight. So having said that, I'm happy to say that we achieved a 90% pass rate in the February sitting, and you can achieve a similar feat if you stick to our study plan and utilize our study resources, because as per our study plan, you are supposed to attempt a mock exam per week and conduct revision focused on the same weekly mock exam. And across 6 weeks, you will master all 6 mocks. And when you have mastered the 6 mocks, you will definitely gain extremely good marks in your upcoming SCS exam. So don't wait until the last moment. You have 7 weeks at your disposal, which is enough and more time. So start your preparations right now. If you're planning to sit for the exams happening in August, book your exam right now, commit yourself and stick to the study plan. If you do so, you will have enough time to go through the Preseen, attempt the 6 mock exams, as well as conduct revision with the intention of improving your theory knowledge and improving your application skills. Okay, so I'm moving on to the Q&A. If you have any questions, you can switch on your mic and talk, or drop us a message via the chat. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, folks, thank you very much for those questions. I hope I addressed everything. So if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit our website and click on the contact button and drop us a message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours. And if you want to email us, you can do it via info@study@tcs.com, or simply WhatsApp us on this WhatsApp number. And I urge you guys to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops are uploaded to our YouTube handle. And via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 videos, which is a good Preseen mind map. So on a continuous basis until your examination date, keep watching these 6 TikTok videos over and over, so that you are constantly keeping yourself reminded of the most important points which are highlighted within your Preseen. Also, I invite you to read the blog post which we have developed focused on Leothayre, which shares important information about your company in a nutshell. So having said that, it brings us to the end of the Preseen analysis session. I hope you gained a good understanding of what happens within your industry and what happens within your chosen industry, Leothayre. And I expect to see you guys next week, next Saturday at 10 a.m. UK or 9 GMT, in which I'm going to teach you crucial answering and time management techniques. And after teaching them, I will also explain how to implement these techniques in the most practical manner by taking you through one of the mock exams which we have developed focused on your upcoming examination. And I hope if you're planning to sit for the exams happening in August, I hope that you'd start your preparations right now so that you'd have enough time to go through all the study resources, attempt the 6 mock exams, and conduct your revision well before your examination date. So thank you for joining. I'll see you guys next Saturday. Take care.
Thank you